G'day YouTube. Take number 2, not that it's relevant to any of you guys. You might be a bit entertained or concerned if I said it was take number 50 or something. Anyway, well, I noticed the other day that when I was in the driveway, I blipped the throttle on this thing and it sort of dipped a little bit lower in RPM than it should have when I snapped the throttle shut. Then straight away, I know what it is. It's pretty obvious. Yep, I think you know where it's going. You can see that this intake pipe has actually been taken off. It's sludgy throttle plate / idle speed control valve. So generally, yeah, ISC valve. If I go out of the sun and show you, if the camera's going to pick it up, I think the camera's very happy about it. There we go. You can see there is a little bit of what I call artifact around the throttle plate. If I zoom in there, pop this up on this low side pipe. Okay, let's zoom in a bit more. Still focused. Now you may not be able to see it, but the camera not be able to see it, but there's kind of a ring of carbon, oily carbon around the throttle plate itself, and generally that clearance between the throttle plate and the throttle body is what we call base idle in air-fired cars, and that is the lowest idling value that the engine has at any time. Well, in an unloaded, no air conditioning on, blah blah blah. Okay, so the point is the ECU is able to adjust the idle speed of the engine. Now, it is also able to compensate for the crap around that throttle plate, but it's only able to compensate to such a degree, and the change it makes is only so fast. So when you suddenly turn on the air conditioning, turn the steering wheel, or like for example modify the idling speed by blipping the throttle, give the throttle a stab and then suddenly let your foot off, just as quick as it went on. The idle speed control valve is making up the difference in idling speed for the plate being so dirty. Now you can actually see there's a slight mark on the throttle body in front of the plate, if the camera's ever going to focus, where the carbon's been scraped off by the throttle plate opening every now and again. So there is a significant build-up if the camera ever focuses, even though it doesn't look like it. You can see there is a significant build-up. I should have brought a torch out, but anyway. Yeah, you don't see much, but... So you might be wondering how to clean this safely and effectively. Generally, there's 2 ways of doing it. What I do is get a tin of petrol. You can remove the throttle body completely, and being an Ecotech motor, you can get your Allen keys out and pull off this top cover. Under the top cover, near the rim, there's a neoprene gasket. Obviously it's oil and fuel resistant, and that gives you the opportunity to clean up the plenum chamber, which is this big chamber here, and maybe the top cover. It's not just a big open chamber. From memory, it's sort of contoured, to help equalise the airflow. Now, that brings me to an important point with plenum chambers. If you didn't know it, the purpose of a plenum chamber on an air-fired car is to equalise the airflow over all cylinders, all 6 in this case. If there's a difference in airflow, the ECU can't tell, and therefore the fuel-air mixture for each cylinder is not going to be identical. So that's why the plenum chamber is so large and why it's so carefully designed. This would be a computer assist design intake plenum chamber / manifold. It's in 3 different parts. You can see that the runners there are separate. If I zoom in a bit, it's on focus, it's not happy. The runners there are separate to and I can see it but the camera can't. The runners there are separate to this plenum chamber. It bolts on from memory, I think, and the top cover is obviously separate too. And the only reason the top cover unbolts is really pretty much because it's too complicated to cast in one thing and have accurate and smooth inside. I guess you could probably gain some power by port matching the manifold, because you know, port turbulence could be a factor if you've got, you know, a difference between, you know, in alignment in the port versus the actual runner itself. So if you can be screwed doing that, yeah, you know, if you got the time to waste, you know, port match it, you might get a small difference in power, detectable or otherwise. Smoothing the inside of the manifold to a polished finish. There is a lot of debate about it, but I'm going to say that because it's injected, turbulence is not desirable, and if you can eliminate any of the, like, you want it to be as smooth as possible on the inside of the runners and the inside of the plenum. So if you can be screwed doing that, you might get a small difference in power. So I digress. I'll show you guys the best way to clean this throttle body. And the stupid radio in the car was on. An idiot. And a good way to get a copyright strike, isn't it? No, well, now that the radio's off, I know that people are going to be wondering what this thing actually runs like. And if I don't give you guys a demo, I know there will be questions, or maybe not even asked questions. Before you start by running an engine, make sure all the crap like this is clear. Otherwise you might be sad because it might destroy something under the bonnet, or it might throw the screwdriver at you and destroy you. So it runs okay. Noisy piece of shit. That is the car going past. It runs okay, but I do notice it. I've just started it up, so it's running at a high idle, but it'll dive in a sec. Well, it's high idle, you don't tend to notice. It's only when they warm up and the idle speed drops. It's not going to show me because, yeah, but anyway, see, it's actually running at a higher idle than normal. They idle generally slightly lower than that. It's not going to show me, but you just have to take my word for it. When it warms right up, it's slightly low in idle. And you can tell YouTubers from everyone else because they're the ones with the camera that no one notices and they think has got some kind of problem because they're talking to themselves. But I'm not talking to myself, I'm actually talking to a camera, so it's okay. It's not pretty obvious. And I'm doing this tutorial for if you had no idea about, you know, working on a car. That's what all my videos are aimed at, people that don't have a damn clue, and even people that do have some idea. It's aimed at everybody, so if you're wondering why the extraneous details, that's why, because I just assume that people don't know anything. And even if you have worked on cars before, you might still learn something that you didn't already know. The first step, obviously, is to take this pipe off. An induction tracked pipe, and I recommend doing both ends. Before you remove it completely, note that there is a cutout on the hose clamps that line up with this little rubber, you know, protrusion, just to line up the hose clamp, you know, so that they're the easiest to take off. So take off the pipe. If it's dirty, you can give it a clean, but this is pretty clean, so that's the first step. Second step is to set your stupid camera somewhere up somewhere where it's not going to. It's kind of unfortunate that it's not gonna. How about I do that? How's that? Well, you're not gonna like that. I think I need a bag of rice or something to set it on. How's that lens sitting on? Just that line. Set it up so it's not. Yeah, there we go. That'll do. Yeah, how's that? So does this stay focused? Probably not fully, but this is generally how I clean it out. So the tools of the trade are cut down soft drink bottle with a toothbrush. Yes, I did just go into the bathroom and get my toothbrush. It needs replacing anyway, and yeah, sacrificing it for the good of whoever's watching the video. that out by pouring solvent of some sort into your container. This is unleaded petrol, gasoline, whatever. Generally the best way is to hold that throttle plate all the way open, so if you're lucky, some cars, not all, sometimes prop a screwdriver against something, yeah, can sort of hold the throttle open. One-handed throttle plate cleaning. You should also generally remove the positive crankcase ventilation hose so you don't get too much petrol down there. So it'll run like shit while the petrol clears, but oh well. I really should remove that, shouldn't I? Nah, it should be right. Don't want to get too much crap in the actual PCV system either. And this is part of routine servicing. Like every oil change, you should be cleaning out the throttle body. Simple as that. Your car isn't idling at the correct idle speed because you don't clean out the throttle body. You've only got yourself to blame if you're servicing your own stuff. Hopefully I'm not getting shit all over the camera. No. Like I said, this is routine servicing, very basic stuff. The idle speed of your car tanks. Do not adjust the base idle screw, which is this here. It's sealed at the factory. You read the sticker that's under the bonnet, it tells you not to adjust it. So don't play with the base idle. I get very sick of hearing people crap around with adjustments they don't know anything about. To correctly adjust it, if someone has crapped around it, you need to put the car into usually it's into diagnostic mode by shorting something to ground or shorting something to something, and that'll give you base idle. So don't fuck with the base idle adjustment. If you do, it will not idle correctly, and when someone does clean the throttle body, it will idle too fast, so don't fuck with it. This is just step one. Try not to get too much, filth into the throttle body. This throttle body sits lower than the, it actually sits slightly lower than the intake tube. It's a bit hard to explain, but the levels, so you're not going to get crap run back in. So no danger of that happening. Now, get rid of the keys out of the way. This is a tool of the trade. If you don't have one, you need one. Okay? If you don't have one of these mirrors on a stick, then go get one. But it'll allow you to see what you're actually doing, so you need a mirror on a stick. So mirror on a stick, very, very important. You're just trying to clean the ring of shit off where the throttle plate is going to sit. Drop the toothbrush, pick it up, idiot. Anyway, like I said, the goal is to clean the throttle plate and the throttle body, preferably in its entirety. So, if you need to, get a torch, so you can see what you're doing. You want all the carbon removed around the throttle plate. So, take your time. You guys can just suffer through it. Keep going until you can see bare aluminium alloy. That's what the goal is. This carbon's a bit stubborn, but it's not doing my back any good leaning over this bloody engine bay. quite carboned up. So I'm going to stop the video there. Now you get the general idea. I think I should clarify something before I keep going with this video. Some of you might be wondering, why am I having to clean out the throttle body on my EFI'd car and not on a carbied car? Well, this is actually very, very simple, because a carby is a fuel mixing device. A throttle body is an air metering device. Now the difference is a fuel air mixing / metering device, such as a carby, actually cleans out the inside throat of the carby where the throttle plates are with fuel every time you run the engine. EFI doesn't, because it's injecting the fuel into the ports, the intake manifold / cylinder head, so the actual backside is still fairly dirty. I've taken off the throttle body. I recommend you guys do the same, because I tried to clean it in place like I have done in the past, and it's just too hard. And I'm over bending over the car, you know, over engine bays. So you can see it uses an O-ring. It could be some special kind of a fuel resistant O-ring of some sort. It doesn't feel like just neoprene. You probably take that out with a small screwdriver and clean all the shit out of it. So that's what I'm going to do, and clean out this crap too. Not that it will make a massive difference, but yeah, there'll be shit inside the plenum. I just pulled the idle speed control motor, because it's not a solenoid, it's an actual little motor type of servo. And if I can get the camera to focus, you can see it's fairly dirty. If I can hold it still. That will affect the valve's performance, because this is obviously like a poppet valve that's designed to sit. You can see all the carbon and shit. It's designed to sit in a seat, which you can't see because of dumb cameras. Stupid auto gain control. You're not going to see it, but it's got a seat in there that's carbony as well, and all this crap's what I'm aiming to clean out. So if I open the throttle plate one-handed, stupid camera, you can see that there's still a fairly significant amount of shit around that throttle plate, which is going to prevent it from drawing in that base idle air. Don't forget to clean out these passages that are for the idle speed control valve either. You can't really see it there, but there you go, you can sort of see it. Okay, so I didn't go to too much effort to clean the plenum intake. I just sort of gave it a wipe out. There's no point unless I'm going to rip the top off it and give it a proper clean. It's the airflow meter. It's the elements there. 3-wire hot wire airflow meter, I think. 3-element, whatever. This is the result. It's clean. It's not absolutely spotless, but pay particular attention to where the idle speed control valve sits inside there, because as you can see, it's actually clean now, whereas you couldn't even see with the camera's auto gain control. Sort of blurry. There you go. Right down in the middle there was a lot of crap. It's still not perfect, but it is clean. Probably not going to see it, but it is cleaner than it was. So look at the passage there, and that passage there, more importantly. So clean all the crap out of there, because that's where a lot of it accumulates. And don't forget to clean the valve itself. You know, that's it's nice and clean. I did find you can sort of pull it out. You're probably not supposed to, and it's probably not very good for it, but anyway, I did. So if I've rooted it, yeah, I don't think I would have though. I mean, it's a linear motor type of thing, so it's just gears. But don't forget to push it back in afterwards. Yeah, you're probably not supposed to do that, but anyway. This sealing face, or flange, has to seal against that O-ring. The O-ring has to be spotless, and so does the flange. If it's not, get some 2000 grit sandpaper and give it a rub back with the idea of cleaning it but not removing material. Okay, well, the throttle body's back together. I used a bit of transmission fluid around that O-ring to lubricate it. It should have been rubber grease, but I was lazy, so sue me. It's nice and clean. It's a good idea to get a helper to jump in the car and, without the engine running, obviously, ask them to put their foot all the way to the floor and make sure you're getting full throttle. Because if you're not getting full throttle, it'd be very funny, because you're going to be driving a car that's not performing correctly. You can see it's all nice and clean. I'll look at the damn camera still. It's all nice and clean. I wouldn't say it's the cleanest, like I could have polished the throttle plate with some steel wool or something, or a Scotch-Brite, but yeah, whatever you do, don't take material off the edges of the throttle plate or the interior of the throttle body, because yeah, it's machined precisely and you'll screw up the airflow characteristics, and more importantly, you'll alter the shape, thus altering base idle. There's every chance the idle speed control valve's not happy with me for screwing with it, so I think it should be fine, but we'll see. It'll rev harder anyway because it's just had the carbon cleaned out of the throttle body. The best that's ever started, straight up. There you go. It is idling high, but it'll calm down. There we go. It's because the throttle body's clean. So there you go, extending the plunger on the idle speed control valve, it doesn't stuff it up, but just make sure you line up the little plastic bush with the two notches cut in it. Actually, they're outward stick, you know, little notches that engage with grooves that I cut into the shaft of the idle speed control valve plunger. Make sure you re-engage that. You can pull back the little collar spring loaded to expose the plunger itself, so I suggest you clean it right out. It's idling the best it's ever idled. Hear that? No dip in the throttle when you blip it and let it go. So everything's working as it should. It's still idling slightly higher than it should because it's still effectively a cold engine. I mean, it's been running today, we've driven it a few hours ago, but as far as the ECU is concerned, it's a cold motor until it's been running a little while. And when you first start an engine, unless it's at operating temperature, it will operate in open loop mode, which means it's not closing the informational loop, i.e. the oxygen sensors. There are two of them, they're heated. Oxygen sensors do not operate effectively at a lower temperature. I can't remember what the effective operating temperature of a Lambada sensor is, but I think it might be 800 degrees or something. I'm pulling the figure out of the air, don't blame me if it's slightly wrong, but it's higher than you'd think, so that's why it's reasonably close to the engine. They're not so far down. So that's the job done. So there you go. Sweet as. So go out there, clean your throttle plate, throttle body I should say, and your idle speed control valve, because they don't idle very well when they're full of shit. It's a service item. It never used to be with carbies, like I explained earlier on, but now that we've got injected cars that don't inject fuel into the throttle body like carbies used to, now you've got to clean out the carbon, the oil and the sludge. So go out there and clean the damn thing. If you're servicing your own vehicle, and then the chances are high if you subscribe to my channel, because why else would you be watching it unless you're just simply interested, which is awesome. Thank you very much for subscribing if you're just interested and you don't work on your own car as well. But if you are, make it part of every second oil change. You don't have to take it all the way off, but the more frequently you clean the crap out of there, the less frequently you'll actually have to remove it completely. So remember, tube off, jam the throttle open, wide open, you know, rag, petrol, carby cleaner if you own it. I'm not paying 20 bucks a can for something I'm just cleaning a throttle body with. So yeah, if you use unleaded, remember it contains benzene, and benzene's a carcinogen. Thank you very much for watching.